All right. Happy New Year. I guess it's officially the new year now, though I'm recording this a little bit early. And I wanted to go back to talking about habits again, but doing it a little differently. As I wanted to talk about um, sort of like a personal habit that I wanted to work on. And that's talking more from like a place of feeling rather than thinking and kind of overanalyzing a little bit. So I think that, or actually, my therapist basically gave me something to chew on. And like a good therapist will usually give you something to think about. And so she told me that this habit, or this pattern of overthinking and overanalyzing is kind of like a symptom of a traumatic or sort of adverse or difficult upbringing. And I sort of knew that, but I never quite put it into place in that sense. Like I am kind of a very intellectual person. I'm like a programmer and I read a lot of psychology books and I have been for 20 odd years. And I love like YouTube and how there's a lot of science vloggers and educators and um, yeah, doctors and people doing explainer videos. Like, I was a big fan of the Howtown and the Vox and the explainer videos. And I love it when they kind of break things down and go through and do the research and analyze everything. But at the same time, I also realized that a lot of these sort of explanations um, tend to like be very detached. Like science has this thing of being detached. Even when we're talking about things that actually affect people generally, like climate change or medicine and like economics, especially, or in psychology, even where we're talking about social behaviors and our own mental well-being and stuff like that. But there's sort of like this separation. There's like the data and the subjects, and the findings and the math, and it feels very clinical, even if it doesn't intend to be. Even if it is about something that is more humane. Um, it tends to like be wrapped up in this academic language that makes it sort of detached. So it doesn't come from this place of feeling. I think that that's why there's generally this separation in the arts and sciences. Is the arts is like, okay, how does it actually feel to be that way? Um, like I love movies and I watch these variety videos, actors on actors, and it's really amazing to hear them talk about their like their acting experience. Like obviously they're there to sort of talk about their movies, but this is like the only time where I see it where they're not doing these funny little, clickbait, clippy soundbite games, like hot ones or lie detector tests or whatever. Like in actors and actors, they actually talk to each other without any interviewer, just talking about their process and their careers and how they feel about things. Why I bring that up is because a lot of the actors, they say that, I've heard this a few times now, and they say that they feel more real actually when they're acting, um, because they obviously like they find their character and they find their truth in the story or whatever. But the reason why they say it feels more real is that they're actually allowed to express their feelings. They're actually put into these situations where they can be aggressive and fight back, or they can be vulnerable and sad, or they have to deal with grief and joy and, you know, all of these situations that you normally don't encounter on a day to day basis. Um, a lot of times when we're working or when we're out in public, we have to like hide parts of ourselves It's like unnatural to somehow be you and show your emotions. Um, so yeah, that's my big long-winded way of saying that it is important to be in touch with your emotions. And that's something that I want to do more as I make more of these. Um, because I do realize that when I overthink things, it, or even when I research and I'm reading all of these books and I'm trying to learn things, I'm trying to like get at some explanation for what I'm feeling. But no matter how much you read or learn or watch videos and have someone or something tell you how it works, it still doesn't make you feel better. Um, I don't know if there's really any good analogy for this, but it's like I can explain to somebody, maybe not me, but somebody can explain to someone else like how a car is made, or a bike, or a airplane, or a rocket ship, or something like that. He can explain how the sausage is made, basically, but it doesn't. They can never explain how the sausage tastes and how it feels to you when you eat it, or if you ride a bike, or if you drive a car. You get a feeling, and that differs for everybody. So that also includes like ourselves. I've spent so much time trying to understand, like, okay, how does the brain work? Why do we end up with these feelings? What are the sort of rules and conditions? And it's not to say that it doesn't help me gain some insight, but it wasn't until I actually allowed myself access to like this, I don't know, like this pain and this self-loathing and the sadness that was kind of inside, that it felt like I could release it. And I don't really know if there's some magic, I don't know, like process or um, scientific method that could ever tell you how to do that. It's like going back to the example of a bicycle. I'm sure a lot of us ride bikes. Um, is that you just simply cannot ride a bike without just trying constantly. And I feel the same way about our feelings. The overthinking is actually a way of dissociating. You kind of like live up here, and you kind of like swirl around in your head and your thoughts. Um, and you forget that your thoughts and your brain is attached to the rest of your body. You forget how you're breathing. You forget if your heart is racing or if your muscles are tensing up. And if you're not in tune with those things, you can't ever ride that emotional bike anymore. You just like forget. Instead, you're kind of stuck on the overthinking train. I know these analogies are kind of awful now. But that's to say that I think one of the most important habits that we can pick up, especially now that it's the new year and everyone wants to change, everyone will focus on like, what can I do? What can I add? I should exercise. I should eat better. I should, work on my mental health. Maybe some people do want to meditate. Maybe people want to pick up yoga, or they want to meet new friends and they want to add something. But I'm at this place where I think it's actually much more valuable to subtract. I think it's, I think practicing peace is not something we think about. And it's something that is highly underrated. I'll explain a little bit more with my overthinking parts. Is that a lot of our behaviors that we don't like if we overeat or we feel depressed and tired and we don't feel motivated, or you're not sleeping well, or you're drinking too much coffee or smoking or too much, or you're using weed or whatever, drinking. A lot of that stems from an emotional core. We don't want to believe that, but all of those things is a way of making the body and our minds feel better by relaxing it or sort of just masking those feelings. So it's like that because when we're stressed, your body releases hormones. It releases stress hormones like cortisol, um, and it affects a lot of the same behaviors. I think I mentioned before. There's like we have habits because certain conditions trigger them, but one of the most consistent triggers is stress. We kind of just put stress in this big bubble, um, but it is true because how do I explain this? There's a medication that I take for my eczema. I have like eczema and it flares up sometimes, and when it gets bad, I take this medication called prednisone. Prednisone is basically like a medicine version of the stress hormone your body releases. And a lot of its side effects is you feel more energetic, but you're supposed to take it in the morning and you're supposed to take it with food because it makes you more hungry. It increases your appetite. You're going to overeat a lot more. It can cause you to gain weight. It can make you feel a little bit more manic and edgy. And because it gives you so much energy, it can affect your sleep. And those are all things that people generally have trouble with and don't know how to control, including myself. But once I started to address that stress, I think of it like as an alarm in your head. Um, and when it's like really stressed and you're like really threatened, okay, you're at like a 10, like true threats. But I found that even when I was working or just sitting around, I was still hovering at like a 3. Maybe when work was bad, it would be at like a 5 or a 6, which is fairly high. um, but one thing that was eye-opening was that I never truly felt like the alarm was off. That's like a very sobering kind of thought, that for some reason, no, I think I kind of know it's mostly because of my childhood, is that you feel the world is unsafe and that you're constantly struggling, even when you're relaxed, because you're not fully relaxed and you can't quite let go. And that's sort of the thing that I've been working on. When you finally learn to like turn that alarm to 0, suddenly things don't seem so bad anymore. I actually do that before each one of these videos. I feel nervous, so I just kind of like just take one deep breath And then I allow my head to quiet down and soften my shoulders, and I kind of drop down into my core a little bit. But just by doing that, it doesn't make the video seem like some big thing where I I don't want to mess it up, and it's going to reflect badly on me, and I can't stand the judgment, or I don't like how I look on camera. Like all of that just suddenly like vanishes, and I'm just sitting here talking. So I've noticed that when I try to kind of practice this piece and turn my alarm down to zero on a regular basis, I noticed changes. I noticed like I don't reach for that coffee every morning. Even though I still kind of make one, I made a decaf so that I don't have much caffeine. I don't even feel like drinking it. And I would also like have this bad habit, especially when I'm working more and it's stressful at work, to I want like treats, I want snacks, I want chips and cookies. Um, but now I don't really anymore. It's actually really interesting because I think it's like when that stress hormone is kind of taken away, the symptoms and the triggers that it causes also goes away. Um, yeah, and because I'm like not having so much caffeine and I'm more relaxed and I'm not eating more junk, I also like sleep generally better. I'm still working on it because my eczema like can itch and it can keep me up at night. But generally, it's been a lot better. Like I noticed that that I think a lot of people have this. It's like you just kind of like you're spiraling in your head when you're trying to go to sleep. That actually has died down a lot. And I think it's because, again, it's that symptom of like the stress makes you want to overthink. It makes you want to plan and go through scenarios and wonder if you did the right thing because you don't feel okay. You don't feel calm. You don't feel like safe. You still feel, in some sense, that alarm is still turned on, that you're still on alert. So your mind and your body and your habits kind of end up going against you. So that is what I wanted to talk about today, is that I think it is important to take things away. Don't add more stress. Don't force yourself to change. Don't put more pressure on yourself to become something that you to sort of get away from something you don't like about yourself. But instead, give yourself some grace. Allow yourself some peace to feel okay for a moment every day, to like truly unwind without having music or like a video or a game or a scrolling feed or whatever. Just allow yourself to just sit and to take a deep breath and tell yourself that you are fine. You are okay for whatever the 5, 10 minutes a day. And hopefully, like it did for me, will also change it for you. Um, I'm really glad that my like that voice in my head isn't constantly running anymore. It still does it from time to time, but it's not nearly as intense. Um, But yeah, I hope everyone has a great 2026 and that the world doesn't burn down and that we all are able to, in whatever stressful time and habits that you have, be able to find these moments of calm and peace.